My name is Alyssa. Today we'll be taking a look at Case Study 3. This case study will examine the different steps and regulations that should be followed in regards to making sure that the Director of Health Information Management should take in making sure that responses to subpoenas are consistent and result in the complete health record of the patient in question. This presentation will look at the background information about the problem that is being presented. In addition, there will be an examination to the question that has arisen due to the problems that were identified. There is also the manner of stating why health records are important and how an EHR is determined to be a legal health record. This presentation will also look at the different steps that the Director of Health Information Management should take in order to make sure that complete health records are generated and maintained by the facility. These steps include the following: EPA Act, complying with regulations, using consistent language, address gaps and omissions of information, making sure that orders are authenticated, making sure that data and information is governed and monitored, and that the records are validated and authenticated through reviews of authenticity and attestation. It will then follow with the conclusion of this case study based on the review of steps that the director should take. It will then be followed by the list of references. The background information for this case was supplemented in the following way. The Director of Health Information Management is experiencing difficulties in maintaining true and complete legal health records, especially in regards to responding to subpoenas that are submitted. There is also an added layer of difficulty that is applied to the situation since the facility is in a transitional period. The facility is in the process of transitioning from paper records to EHRs. There were concerns that were brought to light by an attorney who had requested a legal health record and was given two different documents in regards to content for the same patient in question for a legal proceeding. This called into question how the facility is handling the information that is supposed to constitute the legal health record of a patient. Due to the concerns that were raised by the attorney, a question was formed. This case study examines the question that was posed. What steps should the director take to ensure that the responses to subpoenas consistently result in the true and complete health record of a patient? There are many different steps that the director can take, some of which will be discussed further in this presentation. Next, this presentation will discuss the purpose of a health record and what constitutes a legal health record in terms of EHRs. A health record has multiple purposes, but the most important purpose is to document patient treatment and continuity of care. The purposes of a health record are as follows. Health records facilitate the ongoing care and treatment of individual patients, support the clinical decision-making and communication that happens between clinicians, document the services provided to patients in support of reimbursement, provide information for the evaluation of the quality and of efficiency of the care provided, provide information in support of medical research and education, help facilitate the operational management of the facility. In this case study, one of the more important purposes is to provide evidence in legal cases and information as required by local and national laws and regulations. There are two definitions that give credence to the fact that EHRs are used as legal health records. One is the definition of a business record. A business record is a record that is made and kept in the usual course of business at or near the time of the event recorded. This information is recorded in combination with business practices of the healthcare facility. This record is presumed to be trustworthy, which is why these records are admissible in court. A legal health record is the form of a health record that is the legal business record of the organization and serves as evidence in lawsuits or other legal actions. What constitutes an organization's legal health record varies depending on how the organization defines it. One of the steps that the director, as the custodian, should take would be to make sure that the facility is following the UPA Act. The UPA Act stands for the Uniform Photographic Copies of Business and Public Records as Evidence Act. This act has both federal and state versions that state that any record retained in the regular course of business and kept by a process that accurately reproduces the original in any medium is just as admissible as the original when submitted as evidence in judicial and administrative proceedings. This is important for the facility because it helps to support the transition from paper to electronic storage of information. The director should make sure that the facility also has reliable and proper storage in order to make sure that any copies of patient information are able to reproduce an exact copy of the original patient data. The director or custodian needs to make sure that all requirements, both internal and external, are being adhered to. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid set the conditions of participation, which are requirements for the documentation that the facility should follow. The Joint Commission requires that health records be maintained and that the content and documentation standards be followed, and that the CAMH has standards dedicated to defining the components of a complete health record. The director should also adhere to the internal policies of the healthcare facility. The director should also make sure that in order for the legal health record to be considered complete, one of the steps that should be taken is making sure that the language that is used in the healthcare record, regardless of form, is consistent. This means that healthcare record content should be specific, objective, and factual, what is known versus what is thought or presumed, and should contain complete information. Speculation should be documented as such, and signs and symptoms that the patient is experiencing should be thoroughly described. This also goes for any treatments and the response to treatment that the patient experiences as well. Another step in making sure that the facility has the complete patient record is to address any and all gaps and omissions in the patient record. A gap is known as a space between entries, and an omission is when an entry is missing. These two things can make a facility liable in regards to legal action. Gaps can allow for subsequent entries to be made, which can create confusion and hamper a patient's care. Gaps can also happen over time, which can impact care as well. The director will want to make sure that these records do not have gaps and omissions because this can create suspicion or evidence of wrongdoing if the health record is part of a legal investigation or proceeding. The director needs to make sure that all orders are listed in the healthcare records are authenticated. All orders must be authenticated or verified by the provider who gave the order or who is responsible for the patient's care. Physician orders are given for different medical interventions and can oftentimes be the source of treatment errors. There are two different kinds of orders that should be verified, both written and verbal. Data and information governance are important in regards to making sure that the health record is defensible in court. The director should make sure that data and information governance are parts of creating a health record. Data governance is when data is created and there is accountability for that data. Information governance is when information is safeguarded after the record has been created. Authenticity and attestation are also important steps that the director should use in regards to completing healthcare records. Authenticity in regards to the genuineness of a record. This includes making sure that the record is free from tampering and is accurate. This is important with EHR since data can be manipulated or tampered with, so having an authentic record is important. Attestation is making sure that there is a signature on the document. Attestation of paper records includes handwritten signature, initials, and rubber stamps. This presentation looked at the question that arose from the concerns that the lawyer had as to making sure that the facility was able to provide complete health care records for future legal instances. The director or custodian needs to take steps listed and put them into fruition in order to make sure that there are no issues going forward. By establishing the basis for what constitutes a legal health record, the director will then need to do the following: adhere to the UPA Act, comply with the different regulations set forth, use consistent language and address any gaps or omissions in the EHRs, authenticate orders, apply data and information governance, and establish authenticity and attestation with the records. By following these steps, the director will be able to provide a complete healthcare record for future legality occurrences.